Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist by Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm working some more on this particular picture here in the Outlander coloring book, and I'm talking to you about how I choose my greens for herbs and plants and where I draw inspiration from when it comes to choosing colors, and how I put them next to each other to not have them look too busy or just too blah. So I hope you enjoy. Hello. I said it in the intro, it's time to color the next part. So I can't speak. I zoomed in a little closer today because I want to focus on those leaves, and I think it's way easier for you to see without me having zoomed out all the way and being able to see the full coloring page. So this is how far I got. I'm actually filming this. This is the first video I'm filming in 2020. So whoop whoop. And I haven't filmed for quite a couple of weeks. I think it's 3 weeks, maybe 4. I don't remember. But I gotta get back into the swing of things, and I gotta look at my picture again and see, okay, where did I want to go? Because I forgot meanwhile. So I went with quite a couple of purples, a few yellows and pinks for the flowers, and I think my idea was to now turn to green and brown colors, or maybe some ochre colors. So I do have my color pencils to both of my sides, and first off I think I want to start with a couple of greens. Usually I go from left to right and top to bottom when it comes to coloring, but today I think I want to just jump around and see what I recognize, which kind of leaves, and what I want to color them. So first off, I want some warm greens. The list of the pencils that I'm using is on my blog an hour after this video is published, and I'm making a mess on my table already. An hour after this video is published, the blog post for this particular video goes live, and on it you will find all the pencils and other stuff that I used on this page. So you don't have to remember or sit there and write everything down. You can just read it on my blog, because why not, right? I think it's just way easier to have a compilation of supplies I used listed somewhere, and you can just take a look after. I mean, if you're coloring with me while I'm coloring, let me tell you, I do have a permanent green olive 167 and chromium green opaque 174. These are polychromos pencils. This is what I'm coloring my foreground with, in case you haven't seen previous videos of this page. I would recommend, though, that you go back and watch those, particularly the first one, because there I'm talking a lot about my plans for this page, what I want to do, where my light source is, and why I decided, because it's the past, it was 2019, why I decided to color certain items in a certain way, what my inspiration was what my thoughts were, and then maybe come back to this one here and color along with me if you like. So I'm starting off with my lighter green shade. I think this is arugula or something similar, maybe. At least it looks like it from the shape of those leaves. And then I'm going in with my darker green, just shade 'em. And for this layer here, I'm shading them as if Geillis is not casting a shadow on those leaves. So I'm just going in towards the bottom, because the light source, of course, is my window. So I'm starting with that. Just having some lighter areas and then bringing in the dark towards the bottom. And when it comes to determining where light and shadow is on a particular object, it helps to maybe rotate your page and have either the light or the shadow side towards you. And then you just adjust your shades towards the top or the bottom. And also I think it's a little more comfortable for your hand, for the wrist in particular. So that's something that I do. Now, I had said Geillis is casting a shadow. So the window is here, but her body blocks a lot of the light. There is a little bit of light getting through her arms, so you could actually use a ruler, or in this case, as I do, a pencil, and have a line from your light source towards the object that you're coloring. And then you can see, okay, where's the light hitting and where is something that blocks light. So in this case, the arm blocks, the body blocks, and also that pestle and mortar block light. So I want to have a little bit of a difference of a shade between light and dark. I want to have a few highlights here, because maybe some leaves are colored a little lighter than others, but I want to have a bit of a darker shadow. So now I need to decide. There's two greens that I like a lot, the pine green and the chrome oxide green. Since I used chrome oxide already, I'm tending towards the pine green, just to have a little bit of oomph. And I'm going in again and bringing in some more dark green. I will in a hot second add a little bit of blue to shade, because that enriches the look of shadows. It helps to bring in a completely different color, layer it on top, or kind of like as an underpainting, depending on what supplies you're using, just to have a very rich shadow and not grab the black pencil, which is something that I think a lot of beginners do. I did as well, reaching for the black pencils when it came to my darkest shadows. And over time I learned, no, there's way better ways to shade something and not use black, because black flattens colors, and especially if you want to have the not flat desaturated look, you might want to grab other pencils and layer them on top of each other to get your darks, but still have a quite vibrant and colorful object there. That's enough for the dark greens. Now comes the tiny pencil, and I think I had said it in the last video that I have to order one of these extension holders so that you can color with the smaller pencils and have it quite comfortable in your hand. Guess what? I totally forgot to order it. That's definitely something I gotta do, because this is getting uncomfortable for my hand. Gotta remedy that. So I'm just going over some of the spots that I colored with the pine green pencil. I'm having trouble focusing today with my eyes, but without my glasses, I just checked it doesn't get any better, so I just gotta concentrate really, really hard to focus on my coloring object and where I put down my pencil. And when I mean I lose focus, in case you're new, let me catch you up. I love coloring. I love colors. I actually prefer the color part to the line work part when it comes to artwork. I happen to have a condition that is called multiple sclerosis. So I do have a few things that a few symptoms that actually make coloring a special kind of challenge for me. Sometimes it depends on the day, but one of them is that I'm only having 2% sight on my right eye. Anything that is further away than arm's length, I should say. I think that's pretty correct. So I can't watch any 3D movies. I'm actually puking when I see them because my brain can't process the data that it gets from both eyes. And for anything that is further away than arm's length, my brain just shuts off my right eye. And I actually, most of the time, don't have any trouble. I don't really realize that I'm just seeing with one eye instead of two. But on some days, it makes it really hard to focus on something and really see it clearly. My vision gets kind of blurry, and today seems to be one of those days. So I gotta concentrate even more to just focus. Another thing that comes with my disability is fine motor skills, and particularly in my right hand. Thank God I'm left-handed. Or actually I'm ambidextrous, but I'm using my left hand for, I'd say, 70% of anything in life. My right hand for the remaining 30. So fine motor skills are okay with me still most of the days, but sometimes when it gets to the left hand, I do have trouble grabbing a pencil or holding it steady, moving it nicely. It's more, or in a smooth way. By the way, I'm getting my Payne's gray just to darken up this shadow even more. I sometimes can't control my movement on the left hand as well, which is kind of, well, not so great when I color or paint rather small things. It's I mean, I laugh about it because what else can you do? It doesn't help if I get frustrated. I mean, at some point I probably do. Anybody would. Getting back to my lightest green and cleaning up some of the edges up here. But in combination, it makes those both symptoms, so my vision and my fine motor skills, make coloring small objects sometimes quite the challenge. But then I decide to just either go slow, particularly slow, or I move on to bigger objects and save the smaller ones for another day. So for the cord here, for the string with a bow, I want to take gold, green. No, that's, I can't read the whole pencil anymore. It's 268. It's green gold, maybe. I think the other word was the German one. That is almost sharpened of. So if I would have planned to color this whole page with colored pencils, and I would have a day like today, or even a worse day, I would move on to the background for those bigger sections where my fine motor skills are not as important as they are with those smaller objects. So I need a little bit of shading for the string. I don't want to introduce a new color because this will be colorful anyways, and I don't want it to look too busy. So I'm going back to my Payne's gray, and I'm just adding a bit of that on some of the parts of the string. And that green gold here is also getting quite tiny, so it's definitely time to order one of these extenders. Now, on to the next green thing. What do I want to color? This looks like... what does that look like? What do you remind me of? Reminds me of... oh, what is it called? Mangold? Marigold? Mangold. Mangold. So I'm going in with a light gray stem. I'm just choosing my inspiration for the colors. I don't have to be super precise and look up all the plants that are here. This is my color book, so I mean I can decide on what shades of color I want to use, but I kind of want to have it look plausible, if not even realistic. So I'm taking inspiration from plants that I know. So like I said, this reminds me of mangold, or maybe pak choi, like shape-wise. So I'm just using those color combinations that I know are existing in other plants, and I just transfer it. So I'm using a very light cool gray, and then go in with 2 shades darker. And this one, excuse me, this one here is hit by light directly. So I can go a little lighter with my shadows. I don't have to be as dark as with these plants here, that one in particular. And I'm gonna call it arugula, because why not? Now, if you remember, and if you have seen the first part of this coloring page, you know that I want to have a little bit of a golden light coming in. So I'm adding a bit of cream. That's 102 on the very light gray parts, because with the golden light they will get a yellowish tint. It's very subtle. I'm coloring just with the lightest touch, but I want to have a few of the yellowish pigments present. Maybe more towards the right than the left, because those leaves here go away from the light, so the light would hit the upper part here but not the lower part on this leaf, for example. And that's physics. That's something, if you're not really fond of natural science and physics and learning how light and dark actually works, that might be a little less intuitive for you when it comes to choosing colors. But let me tell you, it's still very possible to have the... Oh God, I'm sorry. Ooh, that was a big yawn. It's still possible to have the lights and darks look correctly in your picture. You maybe just have to work a little more with reference photos. Let me activate the vlogging camera, because there needs to be a teaser, which is kind of funny because this video actually will be published before my next vlog. But since I document my week, I want to include footage of that. So this leaf is underneath others, so I don't need to have the lighter green as much. So with this green, I'm just going to indicate for you where the light hits. Definitely hits here. And this one also. So this is the very light section. And then I'm going in with another green, and that is called Hooker's Green. And I'm going towards the bottom to the shadows pretty much, bringing in that green, pull it up to the light green, which is, I forgot, phthalo green, and then I'm gonna blend it on the next layer. This little fella here is in complete shadow because the other leaves are on top and block the light. I think what helped me most with coloring, or also it helped me with painting and such, just choosing the right colors, right in air quotes, but like the correct values when it comes to light and dark, is my curiosity for physics. So I'm quite the nerd this way. I pretty much watch every documentary there is. So I'm going in with my light green, by the way, to over the dark green to blend the two together. There will be another color coming in a minute, but I was just always very curious on how the world works, how it works when we see what we see, why something looks totally different if there's a spotlight on it, and why it looks, like I said, completely different when there's hardly any light touching the surface, and what it does to colors and such. always was very curious, and like I said, watched a lot of documentaries about that. Maybe I remembered more from my school lessons, like the equivalent to high school. I don't know, it just really helped. It made it logical, it just made sense. And it definitely helped me when it comes to having a huge palette of colors like I do with the polychromos. Here there are how many pencils? 120. Lots and lots of different greens and reds and purples and blues and everything. Choosing the right one for the feel that I want to accomplish with my page. It doesn't take me forever to choose. It's actually super quick. And I think that came with my love for physics, that it just makes it easier for me. I guess I don't know if I'm correct or if I'm just imagining that this is the reason. But you know, it would make sense to me, you know. I chose my good old dark indigo. Is it called dark? Yeah, it's called dark indigo. To go over the very dark spots, shade them even more. And you just gotta take your time putting down pigment. I think colored pencils is not a medium that you can rush. It's very different from, for example, watercolors. This is definitely what I would call a very slow medium. And you gotta have quite a bit of patience to layer all of your colors, all of your shades, to, for one, make an art piece look very rich. Because the more you layer, the more you get rid of those white nooks and crannies, those speckles on the page. And you just gotta put in the time. And to be able to put in the time, I think you gotta be quite patient. So that is something you might have to remember if you're a total beginner and are just curious on which supplies or what medium does what, how it behaves, and how much work you got to put in to achieve the result you want to achieve. I mean, it might be a little, I don't want to say deceiving, that's the wrong word, but you might get the impression that a page is colored rather quickly, in case you look up the colors that I use on my blog, because the time that I list there, my working time, is only for that particular video. So you gotta tally them up, which means you have to look through all the blog posts and do some math to tally up all of the working times mentioned. But when you do, you might be surprised that, or yeah, surprised, or it feels maybe like, oh, I didn't expect that. That there's about, I don't know, 15, 20 hours in these bigger pages that are just colored with color pencil, and I think my vlogging camera is full. Yeah, the SD card's full. Alright, that's enough of a clip for now. Gotta quickly power it off. I'm good. Totally forgot to delete my old footage that I didn't need anymore. Working like a pro, I'm telling you guys. Okay, now I get back to the stems, because I have quite a bit of blue and gray and green pigment that transferred to the stem. Fine motor skills and everything. And the great thing about the polychromos is you can blend the colors pretty well, so you can soften the color that you didn't want. It works even better with the Prismacolors actually, but instead of having a lot of green, I just went over it with a light gray, and it's looking way more grayish again. Final shading of the stems. It's very subtle. I'm not sure if you can even see it well on camera, but in real life you can definitely see a difference between the light cool gray and the medium cool gray. Adding a little bit of the yellow back to the cream, not yellow, to the stems. Then I'm going down towards the roots. For that I'm using my medium gray, so not the very light one, because I imagine the roots are way darker than the stems, but I don't think they are brown, so I'm just going with grays for that. And here's another thing. I'm recycling colors that I already used, so I'm going back to my Payne's Gray, which might be a little bit too dark to shade the roots, but by applying the super softest touch that I can manage, I should be able to not have too much of a difference shade-wise between the roots and the stems, but just enough to darken some of the parts here. Now, light and shadow lesson again. Let's take a bigger pencil. This is the light, so the way of the light. So anything very much at the end here is a little bit darker, just a smidge. So I'm bringing in my dark indigo pencil, just touching that up. Super soft touch, but I need a little bit of a darker shade here, because that in the end will give me depth on my objects. It will help with having this look three-dimensional and not too flat. So here we go. That is the plant. Now, let me see. I know this one here, this is lavender, so it will get a grayish green look. This one kind of looks like tarragon. That reminds me of tarragon. So why not color it like tarragon? Oops, don't throw away your pencils. What are you? Leaf green, you're a little too yellowish for me. I'm taking the permanent green and I'm going to add I'm just gonna tarragon is difficult to color. Let's see, what are you? Are you more on the blue? Yeah, kinda. Well, I'm putting aside the emerald green for now. I might choose it as my second color. So let's go in. Actually, I need something softer, maybe. Yeah, I need something softer, so emerald is out of the question. I'm going to take May green instead, because especially at the stems, when you see tarragon pre-cut in the supermarket, for example, you can see that it changes from those very sweet leaves, like this particular green, which I'm having as permanent green, it changes towards a little bit of a yellowish tint, and I think I can achieve that way better with my May green here instead of the emerald. The emerald is a nice shade, but it's too blue for that part. I could maybe use it on top on the leaves, because there's parts of the leaves that are a little darker, like where they connect to the stem. You can also see I'm leaving white spots here. Not coloring all of the leaves with my permanent green, because towards the tip of the leaves there's again that yellowish green tint. I don't know if everybody is that observant in the supermarket or even cooks with tarragon, because I really like it for a couple of recipes, but I do like the anise licorice taste. So I'm quite observant with the things that I use in my kitchen. Also when it comes to colors, I mean, I take inspiration from pretty much anything in my life when it comes to color combos, especially plants, because I just like it. I mean, if you really knew, let me catch you up on another thing. I love to cook. I love good food. I'm hardly ever eating out. Maybe like once or twice a year. I do like to cook on my own. It gives me a lot of pleasure. And I do like to cook seasonally, and also, let's see, are you a leaf or are you a table? I'm gonna make you a leaf. I also like to cook things that have ingredients that grow where I live. I'm not a big fan of shipping something 5 times around the globe to have it on my table. With some ingredients I can't really substitute or get around having things shipped because they just don't grow here. But These are quote unquote the special recipes. I don't cook them very often. But sometimes, like for example, I gotta have some coconut milk. That's having quite the carbon footprint. But since I'm lactose sensitive, I can't have milk. And lactose-free milk is not the greatest thing for some of the recipes I have. But I try to eat regional, like local stuff. And one of them, especially in summer, is having tarragon. So when it comes to herbs and anything, I observe what colors they are, how the colors change from the stems to the tip of the leaves, all of that. And I use it not only for coloring pages where I happen to have a plant there to color that looks like, in this case, the herb. I also like to use those color combos on other art pieces. And by being observant, I don't have to look up color schemes very much. If you have trouble with that, which is, by the way, totally cool. Everybody has their strengths. There's lovely pages on the web that give you a color palette for something. I don't remember the names from the top of my head because I hardly ever use them, but I see other artists use them and produce wonderful art pieces with it. So you might want to search the web for color palette things. Helpers? What's the word? Color palette. Suggestions. Suggestions. That is the word I was looking for. So I'm adding just a smidge of my indigo, just a tiny bit. Not on every leaf, because the tarragon again is in the path of direct light, but just a bit to up the contrast, especially here on those leaves that are covered with other leaves. That's good. All right, I don't want to go with a ochre-ish or yellow-green string for this. I think it works way better to have a gray string, maybe a grayish brown one. So I can introduce another color that I'm going to use on the table probably, because recycling colors. But I'm using my mid-tone gray as the basis, and then I can look through my palette of browns. I don't want to go for, or do I want? Yeah, let's just do it. I'm going for one of my go-to brown colors to shade, and that is dark sepia. It's a cool shade of brown, and it works really well with gray. I like the combo a lot. So why not use it on the string here as well? I'm adding just a tiny bit here where there's probably the knot, because again, this is in the direct path of light. There will be a lot of sunlight reflecting of the string, which is why I'm adding just a smidge of green, nicht green, cream, words, Miss King, to the string and a bit to the stems, just to have it in there and blend out everything else. Let me check the time, 45 minutes, all right. I think this one back here is a different kind of a plant. The leaves look differently. So I am actually, do I have something else like that on the table or on the basket? Yeah, maybe this one here. So I'm going to leave it out for now because I haven't decided yet what I want to do with these leaves here. How I want to color those. I could go on to the big ones here. They shape-wise, they remind me of spinach, but the stems are too short. They could also be borage, and I don't know if that is the English word for it, but that's the German/Russian, and maybe Polish, if I remember correctly. Remembering, not my greatest strength today. So they have a spinach-like green, which is why I'm throwing away my pencil and choosing that particular way of coloring. So I'm going towards a darker green. And for the first color, I chose deep cobalt green. They have a little bit of a whitish, yellowish stem, maybe. Not really. I mean, spinach is colored dark green throughout. Let me remember. I think I'm going all green. Yeah. Let's do it like the spinach. So I'm just giving this a whole layer of the cobalt green. And I will layer some lighter green for the stems on top later. But first, a whole layer. Again, turning my page really helps to also not have my hand be colored with all the pigment here and smudge anything. I'm sorry, by the way, if you can hear my tummy gurgling. I'm not hungry. I had a huge juice this morning. Also with a lot of greens. Something I like to do. I'm not good with eating solid food after I wake up. It just upsets my stomach. I'm doing way better with juices or smoothies, and I prefer the juices. Once every so often I do have a smoothie, but for that I would have to buy coconut milk, for example. And these are very rare occasions where I do that. And in my juices, there's 3/4 vegetables and 1/4 fruit. This morning I had a very lovely one with zucchini and kale and spinach, celery, apples, parsley. So lots and lots of dark greens with apple and I think half an orange. No, 1 orange. And yeah. Why was I saying that? Oh yeah, because of the greens. The juice looked very much like Hulk. That's why I call it the Hulk juice. The winter juices in particular, and also parts of the spring juices are very dark green because I use a lot of dark green leaves for juicing. And about an hour after breakfast, sometimes my stomach starts gurgling because it's been like half a liter of juice that I drank this morning. So yeah, sorry if you hear it on the video. So I got the light green in for the stems, and I used the permanent green that I also used on what I call the tarragon. And I will add a little more on the right and left of the stem, just a bit. I think it just makes for a smoother look. But I don't want to feather it out all the way. There we go. That's enough for me. Back to the, what are you called? Cobalt green. Now, before I go on with cobalt green for the next layer, I want to do the shading. And for that, I'm recycling one of the colors that I used on the arugula, which is pine green. It's a little more of a warmer shade. And I think that just works really well with the cooler cobalt green. So I'm just going towards the edge because, again, full hit of light, but there's going to be a little bit of a shadow here where the leaves curl. That curled lower part is not hit by direct sunlight. And by choosing the color, even if the line work looks flat and could indicate, well, this is not curled, I do have lines of indicated shadow underneath the leaves, for one. And secondly, by choosing those colors, I can make them curled. So I'm pretty much changing the look or the shape of the leaves a tiny bit, but I'm really just staying here on the lower edge. There's a little more of a darker part here because the mangold is on top, so I can go a little darker here. There's not really a lot of shadow on this upper leaf, just here where the tarragon is on top. Because one plant casts shadow on the other plant. There's a little bit of a shadow here on that stem, because this one is on top. The same goes for this section here, because again, this one is on top. And there's not an empty desk behind. These roots here also cast a little bit of the shadow, so that is why I colored this part of the stem a little darker. Now I need my lighter green again to bring everything together. But I'm gonna start with cobalt, adding another layer, making this look a little richer and more saturated, getting rid of those white nooks and crannies in the paper, all those little crevices. A little more of the permanent green here, just to not lose it too much. There we go. And also on the stem here. Next leaf, let's take the one on top. That is directly hit by sunlight, nothing casts a shadow. So I'm just adding another layer of the permanent green to the stem. It also has way more of a yellowish tint, so the yellow light that will come through the window is already indicated here, or what bounces off of that super large spinach leaf. It's already visible. With other media, you could go on top and then give everything a yellow tint. With colored pencils, that's a little more difficult. So it helps when you choose the hue of the pencils you're using while you're coloring your object, and not color it anyways, shade it correctly, and then layer the light hue on top. It's way too difficult, and I would say at some point impossible, at least if you only use color pencils. If you use other media on top, you might be able to do so. Could, for example, use airbrush with a yellow acrylic in it. That would be an idea. But this is not what I'm going here, that I'm going for here on this page. So cleaning up, blending. And then I'm coming back towards the lower edge here and add another layer of, drumroll, pine green. There we go. And the last leaf, starting with cobalt. And then bringing in my permanent green. And then back to the pine for the final shading. So this leaf here is underneath that leaf, which means the upper leaf casts a shadow on the lower leaf. So I'm adding just a tiny bit of the pine green here. Just to separate those two leaves a little more. And I might even add a little bit of my trusty indigo. Let's see if this is enough. Just a smidge darker. So indigo it is, just a bit. Like so. Now I gotta check the time. Okay. I think I can manage to color those roots here before I very slowly maybe stop the video. We'll see. Question is if you want a 1 hour video or a 2 hour video, which is difficult right now because I can't ask you. This is not a live video. So let me think. When it comes to those roots, I need to separate them enough so that there is enough contrast between the table, which is going to be brown, and those roots here. But also I don't want them to be pink. So I want them to look natural, which means I need to choose my colors wisely, and I will go for raw umber. And there's a lot of light hitting here, so I'm also using my cream color, and I will start with the cream. Because up here there will be a lot of light, and since the bark on these roots is rather smooth, it will reflect a bit. That is why I can use the yellow. Now starting from the shadows. This is something where the focus is really challenged. My focus when it comes to my vision that I had explained earlier, because I gotta get the right spots and not mistake the table for one of these root pieces. On top of the cream, I'm adding a very, very light layer of my raw umber, because I want this to blend together well. And that yellow tint might look really weird for now, but once I bring in the background, it should totally make sense. All right, now for shading, I'm gonna take my dark sepia, because especially down here there's a little bit of a darker part. More of the yellow here, just to blend, and a little more of the raw umber. And these are my roots. So I gotta take a quick break. I will probably keep the video running and make this a 2 hour long episode, because I think I want to at least have most of the leaves finished, and not have this be a 15-part video series. But I gotta take a break and make myself a tea. So I'm back in a sec. The tea has been made. So back to some more coloring. I had said just before I paused the work on the page that I had an idea for what I want to do for the lavender, because this is how I color lavender pretty much every time. So earth green, which is kind of like a grayish green, and a juniper green. So why not get that done? But first, I gotta use my pencil sharpener. So I don't keep my pencils super sharpened in my tins. I actually only sharpen them when I use them, and when I'm done coloring and there happens to be a blunt tip, I don't care. They do get back into the tin, and I sharpen them when I use them, because otherwise it's just too much work for me. Yeah, I'm kind of lazy like that, but I think many people do that. Working on their supplies or using tools only when they need to. I don't have to have my tin of colored pencils look pristine when I open it up to be excited for coloring. I need to have my colors in order. That's one thing where I'm very particular when it comes to colored pencils. But I don't mind having a blunt tip. See, for example, there's a blue pencil here. That's like that. Non-sharpened pencils are allowed to live in my tin of colored pencils. Very gracious like that. And I'm getting to the goofy stage here. So let's concentrate on those leaves. Getting them all colored in. And the stems as well. When I set out to filming this morning, like I said earlier, this is the first day of 2020 me filming any artwork videos. I had thought, well, Jan is bringing the kids to their mom. I got a couple of hours. I can maybe record 2 or 3 videos. And now I'm halfway through the first video that I'm filming, and I'm like, I think I'm not gonna be able to record more than 1 video today, which is fine. It's just being exhausted and my energy being non-existent faster than before. So I think I'm totally fine with just filming the 1 video here and then get back to work tomorrow and use the rest of the day to, for one, edit this video. So I'm still working, but I'm not recording any more videos. Gonna do that tomorrow. And then lay on my comfy bed, do some reading, and I feel a nap coming on, so I'm probably gonna nap a little more before he gets home. We had a quiet weekend with the kids, but it's exhausting nonetheless. So yesterday we visited 2 of our friends, had an afternoon of games with them. The kids were super excited. They liked it a lot. They were just jumping around and everything, so it's a little exhausting. So I guess I gotta get comfortable with the thought that I don't have as much energy as I did when I was young and healthy. But that's okay. I learned one very important thing for me, which is when I plan out my filming schedule, or actually it's my publishing schedule, I work backwards. And I really ask myself, is this doable for me, even if I have more bad days than good days? And I make sure that even then it's possible, so that I'm not stressed out. And that I can buffer for days like today, where instead of 2 or 3 videos, there's only gonna be 1 in the can by tonight. And still I'm not stressing or getting to the point of like, oh man, tomorrow I've got a deadline, or I gotta cancel a publishing date. I gotta say, oh, I didn't make it. So I'm having buffer zones. And I was very particular and being really brutally honest with myself when I planned that out, to make sure that I'm not stressing myself, because that would have been a bummer for me. I don't do well with me not accomplishing my goals. If I realize, okay, you didn't plan that out well, you're definitely able to complete the task, but maybe not in the time frame that you've set yourself. I'm not doing well with that. Quite harsh on myself. I'm putting quite a bit of emphasis into the planning phase of any type of project. And if I would have been at a point, like again and again, where I'm like, oh gosh, I can't manage, my energy levels are just too low, and I didn't calculate days like these into my schedule, I would be really mad at myself. I'm totally fine with not being able to have the same workload as before. I don't mind. This is something that I can be okay with, but I wouldn't be okay with me not being able to plan accordingly and create my workflow accordingly. So there's another weird fact about me, guys, that you didn't ask for. Adding a little bit of Payne's Gray too for my shadows here. I'm keeping quite a couple of leaves just with the what's it called, earth green, the lightest green, because there's the direct sunlight hitting them. I don't want to add any yellow tint, because if you look at lavender, it's way more gray than green, actually, at least the lavender that I have on my patio. So by adding way more of that earth green here, I'm already giving it a yellowish tint, and that is enough for me with what I'm planning for this page. I'm a planster. That's a t-shirt. No? I wonder, how does your brain work? What upsets you most if you have a project and you feel you can't accomplish parts of it? Is it more that you're upset that you didn't plan right, or is it more that the execution stage didn't work as much or the way you wanted it to? What annoys you the most about yourself when you feel like, okay, life just gets in the way, or I don't know, you're not moving towards the deadline as fast as you want when it comes to completing tasks? I'm just curious. I'm not judging at all, but I wonder if more people are upset with their planning phase, that they maybe expect more of themselves than they could deliver, and they know it in their heart? Or is it more the execution stage? Are you what I like to call a procrastinator? Which part of the project completion thing is the thing that annoys you the most if you can't get there? So I'm adding a little bit of brown here to the yellow and the Payne's Gray, just to switch things up, because I did use Payne's Gray and green gold on this one, grays and dark sepia on this one, and on this one I did green gold, Payne's Gray, and the brown. It just looks a little different. It's quite similar, but still a little different, which I think adds interest and busyness on the page, but still is harmonic, because, well, it's color repetition, you know. It seems the brain does think, oh, this is a quiet and calm page, when actually you're having lots and lots of colors there just by oh gosh, words, combining them in a certain way. All right, what's next? These are, I think, 2 different kinds of leaves, because these ones here look different than these ones. Maybe I should tackle those next. What kind of color do I want? Let's go with one where I know that I want them to be green. I'm in the back of my head, I'm thinking maybe I want a yellowish, maybe light ochre kind of a leaf, maybe another dark purple one, or a brown one. I don't know yet for this one. So I'm moving on to this little fella here, where I know I want green, and I'm not going to look at my pencils to the left where all the greens are. I'm looking at the ones that I already used, and I want to combine them in the way that there's color repetition happening. So let's combine 2 that I don't often combine, which is May green and emerald green. And let's make it work. So these leaves here are completely in the shadow, because if you lay that here, you can see the basket is blocking light and the bowl is blocking light, and maybe there's a little lighter parts here, because if you take the light from the upper part of the window, it will hit here. So I'm adding a little bit of the light green towards the lower part of these plants, and have the dark shadows here right behind the bowl. So these would be the lighter sections, and now the darker ones come in. This is just the base coat. I know this looks weird for now, but I'm gonna blend it all together. And this is actually a color combo that needs a little bit of work, because I have a very blue green here in the emerald green, which is a bright light green, and then I do have the warm May green on the lower part. It's quite easy to combine a warm color and a cool color, but I think it's easier if you have one of them be really dark, say the cool green. I could use a cobalt green, the one that I used on this leaf here. That would be easier to blend and make look nice with the warm May green than it is with the emerald green. So I'm going to blend the emerald into the May green a bit. I'm probably gonna extend the May green a tiny little bit towards the top section before going in with my shadows. just a smidge of the blending, and then I'm going to the before mentioned cobalt green. And putting that on top. And since I feel my energy weaning pretty fast now, I think after that I have to stop the video and do the rest of the plant coloring in the next video. This is a phenomenon that I haven't gotten used to, like totally used to yet, how fast my energy goes. Once I feel it coming, it's like 5 minutes and I'm done. This really changed quite a bit. When I was younger and healthy, I could keep going for a while after I felt I was at that point, and usually it was because I was just tired, because I didn't get a good night's sleep or something. Just had a huge work project and did put in many hours. But it's a little different now. I can't keep going for as long as I could after I hit that point. So thank you, fatigue. Great to have you with me. So let's quickly get these plants finished. I don't want to rush though, which is quite the challenge because I desperately want to go to bed for a quick nap. Quick means 2 or 3 hours. But I also don't want to rush my coloring because I will be unhappy with it later. And I can only change so much with colored pencils and these many layers of colored pencils. A little bit of my trusty indigo to put on top. No, my fine motor skills are leaving me. That's definitely full round of fatigue. Oh. It's a little more difficult to concentrate. But I can get there. Or I'm having another idea. I will not stop the video. I will use my magic editing wand. I will just leave this for now and film the rest of the video tomorrow so that I can accomplish the need for not having 15 parts of this page and get to the 2-hour video. But I will also be able to relax a bit now and take a break and take a nap. Smart Sarah-ish. Smart-ish. I think everybody was yelling at the screen, just film it into sittings. That's fine. My brain didn't work like that. Okay. So that's it for today. I'm gonna film the rest tomorrow and I will see you in a magic editing second. I'm gonna go to sleep now. It's a new day. It's just a second later for you, but I re-energized, I did take a nap, and now I'm ready to do some more coloring. So let's see. I think I want to tackle the basket first because there's a lot of different kinds of plants in there, and I think it would be best if I just got that out of the way. Let's see, what do I want to start with? I think by the way, I did leave my pencils to the side just as they were before, so there's a little green chaos next to me. Let's start with emerald green though, and since this is a cooler green, I want to put it a little more towards the back. So let's go for these tiny leaves here. And give them an emerald green layer first. Since this is further away from the viewer than those plants here, I might not shade them as distinctly or put as much detail in as I would with something like the lavender up here. So I'm starting with another cool green, which is the deep cobalt green, starting to shade those little leaves. And of course I'm wearing something white where I know that I could pick up pigment from the page. I'm super clever. Not, but well. I can have a stained shirt. That's fine, I guess. So going back with the emerald green. Just blending the two together. And because I can, and I want to enhance the contrast, I'm adding a tiny little bit of my indigo. And every time I pick up that pencil, I'm reminded, you gotta order that extender. I might just do that here on camera just to not forget it again. Let's do that. Hold on. So we need Amazon. Amazon, my friend. What are they called? Pencil extenders? Let's try pencil extender. That could be the right word. Is it what I want to have? Yes, it is. So, okay, there's a prime one. I like prime. Derwent. Okay. Oh, for more than, hold on. Haha. There's 12 of those, and I do have at least 2 pencils that are really small. So, crayon, wooden, blah, blah, blah. Style extension with aluminum handle for school office supplies, 12 pack. There are more pictures. 0.8 centimeters. Can you adjust them? Like depending on how thick your pencil is? Good question. Aluminum sorted. Oh, you can definitely adjust that here. Yeah. This is more to my style. $8, totally fine. Free delivery by tomorrow, by now. Buy it. Okay, the rest is private because there's my address and everything. Payment's fine. Shipment by tomorrow. Buy now. Thank you, your order has been placed. Wonderful. I love technology. So I'm getting pencil extenders. Check. All right. Next up, I want to have a little bit of a warmer green. Let's go with a really warm green because these leaves here look very cute, and since they are closer to the viewer, why not give them a warmer color and push them into the foreground even more. So just a layer of my May green. And then I'm gonna put some permanent green on top. And as I had said earlier in the video, I'm planning to have a yellowish light, so these leaves play into my hand because they have a yellowish tint already. Need a bit of a darker green though, and I'm giving it a coolish tint, but only very slightly by using Hooker's green, which is actually spot on in the middle of the spectrum between the warm and the cold colors. It's pretty much the referee. If cool colors would play against warm colors. Yeah, I've got a weird brain. I know. Okay. Gotta blend that out a little bit with my permanent green. And then bringing in another layer of the May green. There we go. Next to it, I want to have a little bit of the grayish green, like for just those stems here, where I can't really see any leaves. Or do I? Can I? Now I can't really. So I'm just gonna make it my own. And oh, there might be mushrooms down there. Haha, because there's like weird shapes and bulbs, so I'm gonna make them mushrooms. But first, the grayish green stems. And a little bit of indigo. just to have a somewhat of contrast down there. So next up, let's go for the mushrooms. I want to go with a warm gray for them. And I think I need 2 shades and maybe a little bit of my raw umber brown. So I'm starting off with sharpening. And for this one, I chose warm gray number 2. So let's make mushrooms. Shading with warm gray number 4. And then going in with a little bit of raw umber, just to give it more of a earthy, mushroomy tint. Of course, there can also be only gray shaded mushrooms, but not in my basket. Okay. Now, I think this looks a little bit like the arugula. So I'm just going to use similar or the same shades. I'm just grabbing them off my desk. Yeah, I definitely used this color on the arugula yesterday. So first a layer of the permanent green olive, which has a yellow tint. Again, it's a warm color. And then shading with chromium green opaque. So the deeper something is in the basket, the less direct light it gets. So the end of the stem is way lighter because it peeks out of the basket and therefore is hit with sunlight directly. So I'm also going to bring in my indigo again, darkening this up way more, especially here on those lower leaves that are in the basket. And another layer of my lighter green. These leaves up here remind me of sage, so I'm just going to color them with my grayish earthy green. It also helps to have somewhat of a color repetition, not only throughout the whole picture, but also within the basket here. So the darker parts are here where there's not direct sunlight, as well as underneath the leaf here. And that section here is hit by light, so I'm gonna keep it a little lighter. And with my indigo, I don't need much, it's just a little bit, and it goes a long way to just intensify my shadows and give it a richer look even. So I guess that's why it's my favorite shading color. It fits really well with the warm colors and the cool colors, so what can I say? I just really like it. So now I gotta think. This looks tarragon-y, but not really. Do I want to introduce a new color? Not really. So I'm just gonna combine a few that I hadn't combined before. So I'm starting with my juniper green, so I'm going way darker with the color of this particular plant here. And I'm gonna put on top, what's it called? Deep cobalt green. So I'm also going cooler on the color spectrum. Of course, again, just like always, a little bit of indigo to darken up some of the shadows here. And then on top with my juniper again. Just gonna fill in that bit here. And now onto this one back here. I wanna give it a little more of a warmer tint. So I'm going with the permanent green olive. And I'm gonna add, let's add the hooker's green. It's a nice combo, I like it. And as per usual, a little bit of the indigo around this cooler shaded leaf, just to separate them even more. On top again with my lightest shade, just to blend everything together. And then I just can fill in this part here. So what do I want? Maybe a little more of a cooler shade. Let's go with phthalo green. I think I hadn't used that yet in the basket. And the where's my emerald? There's my emerald. So, emerald on top. A little bit of indigo. And this is all the plants. Oh no, I'm gonna make this little part here another part of the plant. It will help me when I color the basket. But that's all the plants in the basket, I think. Yeah, I don't see any that I missed. So let me have a sip of tea. Now I will move on to these here. I'm gonna start with the ones in the back because they look different from these leaves. Oh gosh. Okay, today's a day where I have trouble with words. Oh boy. So I'm just gonna color them in a muted tone, and because here's a muted tone, if I have a muted tone here and then have a little more of a brighter, more vibrant tone in the middle, it will pop out even more. So I'm starting with the chromium green opaque to give those little leaves here some color. I have to really make sure that I don't color parts that are of those bigger leaves. So this is definitely the small one. This too. Gosh. Okay, I'm just gonna decide this is smaller leaf and this as well. This is all bigger. I think this leaves big is for the bigger one as well, as are those stems. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And for shading, I think I'm going to go with the pine green. The basket itself casts quite a bit of shadow down here, so I'm just gonna go dark. And on this part here towards the right, because there's the little light coming in from the left hand side from the top too. All right, now intensifying shadows. But as you can see, I leave enough of the chromium green visible to have somewhat of interest and contrast there. Okay. That's not too bad. Now onto those big bodies here. I'm kind of thinking maybe a yellowish leaf. Let me think out loud for a second and have a sip of tea, of course. I mean, they look like green leaves, but I do have this purple speckle here, and I'm going to go pretty solid with grays and browns for the table. So I kind of need another area where I do have a little bit of a pop of color, and this yellow part down here doesn't do that. It's not enough. So let me think. So I need a little bit of an unusual color, and I'm kind of tending towards yellow, or maybe that's another thing. I could make these brownish purple and go for a little bit of yellow here on the top of those flowers. Yeah, they do kind of have blossoms on top, but they're not really flowers, they're herbs. So that's so difficult. I don't really want to go with the brown shades because I want the herbs to be separated from the desk. That's difficult. Let's see, maybe this color. No, it's too red. I'm gonna come back to this because this just takes a while now to decide what I want to do. So I'm meanwhile coloring those tiny leaves in the back, and I'm starting off with juniper green. And indigo on top. Just to darken some things up, a little bit of the Payne's gray too. Just a smidge, it's really not a lot at all. More juniper green, not juniper, juniper green. I'm gonna leave those leaves for now. I'm gonna take care of this first. Maybe once I have all the other herbs down, I can decide a little easier on where I want to go with those particular particular leaves, because they are some of the bigger ones, like I said, they pretty much mirror this section here. So, and since I chose to have this section pop out, I kind of think I have to do that here as well. But I'm not all that sure yet. So I'm going on with the juniper green for the stems here. And for this section here, I'm going to choose a little darker greens, not as much of those May greens or permanent green olive things, because this section is completely blocked when it comes to the light. Geillis is in the way, so there's way less light back here. There's no candles lit, and I don't have an off-frame light source. So this is the shadow part of the room, and that is why the greens are not as bright. They are way darker, and it helps to choose a darker pencil for that. First one down. Now I'm gonna put aside the juniper green. I think I like the chrome oxide green with a cooler shade on top. So the cobalt green will be my shading color, and then I'm going to add either a little bit of Payne's gray or indigo to it. Okay, now onto the shadows. Ooh. Since those leaves here are pretty much completely in the darker section, I don't have to shade with a light source yet, but just add a darker color to the parts where I want them to be a little darker. I'm still regarding the shadows from when leaves overlap. So this one here is going to be very dark, or parts here will be darker. But that is something that I'm going to take care of with my third color. For now, I just want to not have my leaves look flat, so I'm shading for interest, not necessarily with regards to physical laws. That's gonna come up now. So the leaves underneath are darker because the ones on top cast a shadow. So this one's on top, this one is on top. They don't get the indigo treatment, maybe a little bit here on the stem, but that's that. This one here gets pretty much the full indigo treatment. This one only towards the front and just very lightly. This one gets indigo, this one at the stem, and this one gets the full treatment because it just peeks out underneath the other leaves. Now I'm going over with my lightest color. And a little more on these leaves here. And now they are all blended together. Now I can go on to the second to last herb. Now I gotta think. I'm definitely gonna have a little bit of a yellow blossom maybe, but not a really bright one, because again this is in the darker part, the shadowy part of the room. So I'm going with light yellow ochre and maybe another pencil from that trio, and that is called dark Naples ochre. Yeah, I read correctly. I was unsure for a second if it was Naples yellow or Naples ochre, because with my watercolors that shade is called Naples yellow. So starting with it. And then the light ochre on top. And just to have a little bit of oomph, I'm adding a tiny little bit of my raw umber for the darkest shadows. More of the Naples. And then back to the greens. So since I have the warmer colors here, I think this also would benefit from warmer colors, maybe something like the arugula. So I'm going in with permanent green olive. And I'm totally disregarding the roots for now. I will color them in a second. Well, it's more like a minute or two, because those leaves need to take some time. Where's my pine green? There it is. So again, since this is totally in the shadow section of the picture, at this point I don't shade with regards to physical laws, but just with the intent of creating interest and some nice contrasts. All right, now on to physics, which means third shading color. So first off, anything towards the table. And anything where leaves overlap maybe a bit. All right. A little more of my permanent olive green. And because of the spine and me being left-handed, I'm just turning my picture because otherwise it is very uncomfortable for me to color. Alright, now I can move on to the roots, and I don't want to do the same thing as I did with the mangold. I think I want to go a little more earthy. So I'm taking raw umber, Payne's Gray, and sepia and indigo to do so. Again, turning my picture. Okay, on with sepia. And gotta sharpen my Payne's Gray pencil. And then, of course, just to enhance those shadows even more, a little bit of my indigo. And last but not least, cleaning everything up and blending with my raw umber. There we go. Now for the final leaves, I got to think for a second, and that will be the final part of today's video because I'm already at 51 minutes recording today and I got the footage from yesterday, so I think I'm hitting the 2-hour mark ish. So let's think about those big leaves. I'm still unsure. Maybe I do a very yellowish green, meaning I combine a yellow with my warmer greens, because putting in only yellow, it looks unnatural for me. And if I go for the light ochre color that I also used here on the roots, or it's the same color family, that's just too earthy for me. I think a yellow green is the solution. And I'm starting with cream, light chrome yellow, May green, and then I am choosing my shading colors accordingly. But let's start with the cream color. Especially where the light really hits the leaves. And then going for a little bit of a darker yellow for the other parts. And then going in with my green just to get the first layer done. Okay, now I need my Hooker's green for shading because I want to have a little bit of a warmer tint. And then I'm also bringing in my pine green. So let's go for the hooker first. I'm only going for those stems here, those center pieces of the leaves. And now I can shade. Okay, on to the May green again. Or also the two yellow shades, because at this point I'm going leaf by leaf to blend my three lighter colors together. Almost there. I'm liking the outcome of this particular plant. It pops out enough, I think, to be the counterpart of these purple leaves. I'm really enjoying that. Okay, now I need a little bit of indigo just to darken up some of the parts. I think I want a little more of the chrome yellow on this leaf. Same here. And that's that. All the leaves, all the herbs and plants are colored. So I'm gonna call it for today. This is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Come back next week to see what I do next on this particular picture. And I hope you enjoyed and had fun. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And as I had stated earlier in the video, the blog post for this one is up by now. You can go to pinselgeschichten.de. The link is in the description box below, and find the compilation of all the pencils that I used today. And in case you're coloring this page as well, I would love for you to post it on social media and tag me so that I can take a look and chat with you. So have fun, take good care. I'm gonna see you next week. Bye.